So, here we are back for the last week of
Bringing Up the Bodies.
Bring Up the Bodies in Cromwellathon.
We get the title drop in this bit.
Sorry?
So you know it's serious.
Absolutely. And it's Stephen, Alfred and Ros. And, yeah, the end of Bring Up the Bodies is an absolute tour de force, I thought.
It's very good.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's a more tightly focused book than Wolf Hall because it's in
It's a couple of weeks basically. The whole book, isn't it?
the whole thing just sort of moves on very, very quickly. But,
After a bit of setup, it's suddenly the pace, and in fact, and a lot of it is just over a few days of him pulling the pieces together for, and certainly this section that we just read is ouch,
Easy.
ouch. And you were saying how we see Cromwell's ruthlessness
Yes.
in this bit.
This is peak ruthlessness, really.
Yeah. No cuddly,
No roof to be found.
good-humoured, affable, kindly. No.
Well, there's still little bits of that around how he's treating people that aren't really related to it, but
Yeah. And he has moments of
doubt.
self-doubt,
Yeah.
doesn't he?
Like yes, you know, a horse may fail, a squire may fail, a man may fail. And all that.
Yeah. And when he was interviewing Weston, and he has to
Step out the room.
that was interesting, and he refers back to that, doesn't he?
Yeah,
So
It does,
yeah. I mean, is that Mantell trying to stop us from thinking he's a monster at this point?
Maybe.
I think. Well, she's been very even-handed in a sense because he's always been portrayed as a monster in the Anne Boleyn story. This sort of great romantic tale of the princess who got her head chopped off, or the queen who got her head chopped off. And there is this. I think he does mention about fairy stories and knights at one stage, doesn't he?
He does.
But it's a much more human figure, and also you get the sense that he recognises he's burning his bridges, and the only way to go is forward from this point. And
Particularly because Henry becomes strikingly more paranoid and hard to deal with in this bit.
Very morose.
Yeah.
And I think there's a little bit with that where that gift for Jane Seymour that he describes as being his wife's and then corrects himself to Catherine's, because I feel like Mantell's trying to create the sense that in Henry's head, Catherine was really always his wife, and Anne Boleyn, even though he married her and called her a queen, was always sort of just a fling.
Yeah. Well, and that whole thing of maybe she's a witch. I was bewitched. He doesn't want to be, which was the advice that Cromwell gave to Rafe, wasn't it? That it's like it's never Henry's fault. Everything has to be his idea when it's positive, and when it becomes negative, it's like
he was misadvised, he was misled, confused.
And Cromwell's trying to negotiate that. But having said that, okay, so Anne has to go. He has to find a way of doing that. Henry's instructions very clear about that, but.
The people that have to get executed for adultery. It's very suspicious that they're the 4 people that really insulted Wolsey that one time.
Yes, Wolsey.
But that's there's she sort of trails that, doesn't she? I can't remember the paragraph, but there's a paragraph about letting someone see how deep. That it isn't just a grudge, that it's much, much deeper than that. And it is. Yes, this is revenge, and he's been plotting this. And he when he interviews the 4 men and he assigns them their position on the body of Wolsey.
Which paw? Which paw?
Well,
yes, paw, left forepaw, right forepaw.
You get a bit in his head where it's sort of like. He'd been asked to find guilty men. He'd found guilty men. Whether they were guilty of the correct thing didn't really matter.
Yeah. And they have all done things that drop themselves in it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Undoubtedly. But then so had Wyatt.
Yes.
And he saves Wyatt. So then we know how calculating it is. It is. Yeah. There is that, and it's like he won't let himself really think about to what extent it's really true or not. Because there's that moment with Anne in the tower when he wavers and then he has to stop himself.
And he has to decide that that's a deliberate ploy to make him feel sympathy rather than a genuine sort of fear or honesty thing.
interesting the women that drop Anne in it.
Yeah.
Isn't it? You know, it is. It's Lady Rochford and Lady Worcester.
Yeah.
And like there's a, I suppose, like all through Wolf Hall and Bring Up the Bodies, there's this really strong theme about how women are used. Like gentlewomen. Oh, there's a great line, I should have found it, about how like women in all different levels of society have some power, and you know, like a merchant's widow can run a business, and like even a sort of you kind of lower class woman, if her husband beats her, maybe she can call
the local women, and they can
and the local men. She can call on the what are they, rough music. People will come and bash pans and shame her husband, maybe. But if you are a gentlewoman and you're basically sold by your family, in effect, that no one is looking out for you. So when Lady Rochford and Lady Worcester kind of
put the knife in,
you can sort of see.
There's also a sense, though, isn't there, that that it's about protecting their own positions, and sometimes bringing someone else down. You could see as a way of enhancing your own position.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the motivation. But also, there's all family resentments and all sorts of things.
I think this Lady Rochford just really dislikes George.
She's just a deeply unhappy person, isn't she?
And is deciding to ruin him and his sister, out of justified vengeance to an extent.
Murder.
Well,
yes.
Yeah. But and then that is interesting. We also have that little bit of doubt in our minds, don't we? Because there has been that rumour about Anne and her brother George, and we get it from
lots of people. The boatman in Wolf Hall, don't we? That's where it first rears its head.
Yeah.
So, there's the whole incest plot in Wolf Hall about the Seymour family background.
Yes. So we are not left completely clear about what Anne had or hadn't done, and
you're not going to know that.
No, whenever. And Mark Smeaton, the lutenist, he does appear to confess.
Yeah, well, he confesses not necessarily under duress, but under the implication of duress.
Yeah, but he was kind of saying it even before that. Maybe he was just boasting. Maybe he was just stupid.
He's an idiot who is boasting, and he gets locked in a room with a load of Christmas decorations that might look like torture implements in a bad light. A very scary Frenchman.
Yes. Oh, Christophe, he's scary. Yeah. That is the whole torture, not torture.
Yes.
Or, things.
You can see that he hasn't been ranked.
Yes, but
yes, I don't want anybody brought into court in a chair.
Yes. And making the point that Moore didn't hesitate to use that approach. So but still, you can terrify someone. Yeah. And then kind of going back to the end and the execution scene, I just thought that was so well done, because it was really easy, isn't it, for something like that to be I don't know, a bit I'm trying to think of the word, but
it's going to be a bit over the top, or
sort of melodramatic, or almost slightly risible. You know, you're trying to pull off someone having the head chopped off. You know, it's like and we'd had is she going to be burnt, or is she...
The callback to that Catholic Protestant in the first book.
Yes. Have you ever seen a woman burned? And we know Cromwell has. So good, she's going to be beheaded. But
and again, that's part of Mantell's genius, isn't it? Because in that conversation, you are there, living that with him. You know that Anne was beheaded, but there is still that in that live moment when you're reading it, that option that she might be burned.
And please no.
It's your own suspension of disbelief when reading it, I think.
That's true. And she's allowed a bit of dignity towards the end.
She is.
So I have to say, are we all right? Is that enough?
I think that's...
We good? We kind of said what we...
Well, there was the other thing that was sort of tangentially related that you wanted to talk about, isn't there?
Well, I was going to say just that right now in England, it is going Hilary Mantel wild. isn't it? In
Mantelmania.
Mantelmania.
What are you doing on Wednesday?
I'm not going to talk about that. But and in the not the Guardian, the Observer. Well, it's like the Guardian on Sunday. If you're in America, you probably get it as the Guardian online. Someone, Stephanie Merritt, writing about The Mirror and the Light, said that in her opinion, Wolf Hall and Bring Up the Bodies, the whole trilogy together, is the finest. Now, what did she say? The finest British.
Literary endeavour?
Work of fiction. Of the century.
Of the 21st century.
Yeah.
So there's a hostage for fortune. Because, inevitably then you immediately try and think, well, what's been better? And actually, I'm struggling to think of something that I genuinely think is better as an overall...
Is that just recency bias, though? Because we've been talking about and reading and thinking about Mantell a lot over the past couple of months, so it's very prominent in your mind.
It's true. So, but I guess so that should we throw out a challenge to anyone who's watching?
Yes.
Yeah, can you come up with something that is better? Yes.
In the last 20 years.
In the last, written between sort of 2000 and today. Yeah. So, see you next week.
Next week.
Bye.
Bye.